All right, and I think we're live and good to go. And I just want to thank you, Chad and Tanya, for joining me tonight. May was Mental Health Awareness Month, and I'm going to try my best to stay in the screen, but I can't make any promises that I will because my chair has a piece that's I'm fumbling with it, so sorry. But May was Mental Health Awareness Month, and I felt it would be appropriate to end the month with us talking about it. Typically, I do these Next Level Man podcasts with topics that will help make men better. And so the reason I call it the Next Level Man is because I think that there are always levels that a man can climb to become better. And obviously you'll never become perfect, but with every bit of information and every bit of effort that you put in, it will make you better than you were before you started, before you got that information, right? Sometimes we talk about relationships. Sometimes we talk about finances. Sometimes we talk about physical hygiene. But today we're going to talk about mental health. And so Chad is a master of social work. Tanya is a forensic mental health specialist. And so two experts. Typically, I don't have people who are experts in the field. We're just, me and my homies chopping it up. But now I've got a friend and a brother on here with me who are actually going to talk about it. And again, like I told you guys, I don't typically like to go off of a script. I just like to talk and have it very unadulterated and, down to earth as possible. So thank you very much. With that, I would like to say, I guess I'll start off by saying I was talking to Chad in the beginning and I said, well, here's the thing. In the beginning of the pandemic, we talked about mental health. Right. And we were really talking about the young people and things like that. But especially people of color who it seemed like they were, at least from my experience in talking to people and family members and things like that, it's always been a stigma in the Black community to not approach mental health or to not to prevent themselves from recognizing it. Right. And saying, yep, it's there. That elephant is in the room. They'll walk by and present, oh, that's just so-and-so. That's just how he is. Or no, I'm good. I'm just went through something real quick or whatever. And then the next thing you know, you've got the guy who jumped off the bridge in Rochester with off the garage with the baby. You've got, people that are acting out in other type of ways because those mental health issues went unchecked, maybe way long time ago. Or, when it was identified, it didn't get checked correctly. So, but when I was talking to Chad about that, he said, well, Chris, I don't believe that, because I said to him, I think that men have an issue with this. And Chad said, I don't agree with that. He says that a lot of my clients are men but they're Caucasian men. So maybe it's something that's predominant in the African-American community. Right. But let's pretend like it's not. Right. Let's pretend. And maybe we can talk about that, the Black community being, not so open to it. But I want to talk about the fact, let's just pretend right now that men don't, because they're macho, they want to maintain that macho persona and things like that. Why do you think it is? I don't even know if I know the right question to ask about that, but I feel, and I think that a lot of people feel, that men don't believe that mental health is something that they need to address because they're tough enough to deal with.
Well, I would say that I would say that we're speaking in general. So even African American and non-African American men still have the same issue, because if you go back further back, Caucasian men were in power, and so that power mentality still trickles down today for them, as well as African Americans not seeking mental health treatment as well. So what I is that Caucasian or whatever men we're talking about, it's still the same thing as far as the power. It's still the same thing as far as what you're talking about, the inability to recognize that there's something different about them. and pursuing the help that they need. And yeah, I agree with you as far as the the toughness, the masculine part of it. I also would talk about the toxic masculinity, which is what the community or the culture kind of pressures for men to be, right? To behave in a certain way, manliness, domination, homophobia, aggressive, and to avoid vulnerability. So all of those pressures from the society kind of push men away from seeking mental health treatment, whether they're African American, white, Hispanic, whatever.
Interesting. So I think that I've noticed, and I guess everything I'm going to say, I'll preface it by saying now that everything I say is from my own personal perspective, right? I've noticed that as of late, maybe 2015 to now, you see a lot more mental health related issues, right? Deaths because of whatever, crimes because of whatever. And then when you look back to previous crimes and deaths, you can probably say, you probably be right spot on if you say, I bet there was some sort of mental health issue involved in there, right? Why does it seem like now mental health is taking a forefront in life and in society in general?
Well, if you don't mind, I believe that one of the reasons why is that people are really recognizing, the crime level and the severity of crimes are coming more to the forefront. Just like remember years ago when someone had went into it was a postal worker and they went in and shot up the place. And then the term out of that came, somebody will go postal on you.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and remember Columbine, when that kid went in there, so situations like that were like few and far between at the time. Like they were like not frequent. And so as the years progress, you're seeing things back to back. Like we as people cannot get over one incident. Not that we should ever get over it, but you can't get over the heartbreak and the grief over one incident until you have and then you have another one, right? A couple of days later, you have another one. We had George Floyd. We had the young man that was jogging in his neighborhood, that got killed by a retired police officer. We had Daniel Prude. I mean, it's just back to back to back. So I feel like society watching this is, to me, it's like whether you want to acknowledge it or not, it's in your face. There are issues of the mind. Whether or not you want to just accept that or not, family members or whatever. You turn on your TV, you're seeing some sort of calamity. Something, you have to attend to this. I believe that you can't sweep this under the rug. Like not just that, not just those scenarios that I mentioned, but even persons that are coming out, coming publicly, like in the Catholicism, all the young men that came out saying that they were I'm going to talk about some difficult topics because it's relevant.
Right.
It's relevant. So, I mean, like all those young men that came out and said that they were offended against, in the Catholic Church. And then we have other churches that have had issues. These are, I feel like it is in your face. People are being forced to pay attention to this. Acknowledge that there is mental health. There are issues of mental health. No longer can you sweep this under the rug. No longer can you just be like you were kind of saying, Chris, like we're in a family gathering. Oh, that's just Uncle Chuck. or or your family members whispering to you saying, keep your children away from Uncle Chuck. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
if you understand what I'm saying, make sure you watch them around so and so or whatever. When are we going to deal with these things? These things are coming to the forefront. Whereas no longer okay.
I'm telling you, are they coming to the forefront because
voluntarily?
Or is it because you think technology, social media, the news is now very instant now, and so let's go to racism real quick. Will Smith said had the famous saying where he said racism isn't getting worse, it's just being televised or publicized now or something like that, right? And you can go to CNN in a click of a snap of a finger, right? Is it because of that, or are there more mental health issues arising because people are crazy over? I hate to use words crazy, so I apologize for that.
No, I don't think that there's more mental health. I agree with you. It was already there.
Okay.
That's why I was saying that no longer. That's exactly. I'm in agreement with you. Okay. That's what I was saying. No longer can you sweep it under the rug. Every time you turn on the TV. Exactly. And I do think that has a part to play in it. The media, the media. I mean, our phones are like mini computers.
Right.
Right? I mean, you can access anything in seconds. So, yes, I agree with that.
Okay.
And I'll add to that, just getting back to the men part of it. I always say, what do boys with mental health issues become? Men with mental health issues, right? So it doesn't end there; it keeps going. And so we talk about the difference between women and men seeking mental health therapy or assistance or whatever. We always say women move with emotions, right? So we can tell when a woman, normally, not all the time, but we can kind of tell when a woman's going through something because they're more emotional about it, right? And that has to do with, the upbringing of a man. But we talk about men moving with logic, but men have turned their logic into aggression. So no longer are we thinking first, we're being aggressive. So even if Sam has a depression problem, he starts smoking heavily, right? Or he starts drinking more instead of thinking with the clear logic of, okay, maybe I have a problem. And that just goes back to society again, not condemning what men do. Instead, they emphasize the effects of conformity instead of condemning the behaviors, right? So we don't condemn a man going out getting drunk when he has problems, but we condemn him if he goes seeks therapy. And that's, to me, that's just a society based. And I think it does depend on race.
What'd you say?
I was going to add, and it does depend on race as well, because if we got to go back to the origin of, the origin of things, we got to go all the way back to slavery.
Okay. I do want to say that what you're doing, Chris and Chad, what you're doing now is actually helping that. Having a conversation, right. Being the face of men. And so I believe that, go ahead.
So that was going to be my question. So if I would dare to say that every family has a minimum of 1 million mental health issues in their family, right? Individual mental health issues in their family, right? But again, it's unspoken of, right? You'll see a female probably, again, in Chris's opinion, that will go and get help because she's sad or she's depressed over a bad breakup, abuse that she's dealt with, the loss of a child, and all this other stuff. To Chad's point, a man, he'll self-medicate and deal with it, and that's just he's always high or he's always drinking, blah blah blah. But the underlying issues because he has mental health issues. So how do you, as a man, get yourself, or how do you as society, or how do we, besides us talking about it right now, are there other ways for us to say it doesn't make you less of a man? To get to do some mental health hygiene, to talk to somebody, to accept or admit that you have potentially have an issue.
I think removing the labels right? Diagnoses are labels. And so people get the diagnosis of depression, schizophrenia, whatever, and then they're labeled. So personally, I think maybe adjusting those, like they took the word, and I don't use the R word, but they took the R word out of the DSM-5, right? We don't use the R word. Retired is the R word. We don't use that anymore because, it was, dehumanizing and labeling. But I still feel that a lot of men don't like to even carry the label of depressed or have symptoms of anxiety. I think a lot of things. So back to your question, one thing that can be done is to explain what therapy is. It's traditional therapy versus more modern therapy. Which back in the day, you would see people go lay on a couch and talk to an old white man or old white lady, and that was therapy. And you go out on your own after that, get some meds or something, and you're good. Nowadays, this is what we're doing is a form of therapy.
Mm.
Open discussion. My therapy sessions are just like this. We sit and talk. There is no, I have a couch, but we don't lay on the couch, and I don't sit there and ask you what makes you feel good, and the traditional talk. So maybe just letting men know that going to talk to somebody is just like you talk to your boy, but a more professional person who's experienced it or who kind of got background knowledge of how things should run.
Okay. Huh. Okay. And so Chad, you said something before about men with mental health issues. It used to be boys with mental health issues, right? But because it went unchecked.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about maybe really quick. Who cares if it's quick or short, right? From a parent's perspective, and again, we can lump the kids in general into this group, but whatever. My intention is for men to understand that it's okay, right? But how does a parent? What are some of the things that a parent might recognize in a child to say? And again, sometimes I think that people shy away from this stuff because of the money, right? The money is my finger in there. Yeah. The money, the time, oh, I got to take off work. I'm struggling already, and now I got to do this. The guy, I'm just thinking now from a man's perspective, if I told my wife or my girlfriend or my friends or even my children that I'm seeing somebody, I'm going to Chad's office today for what? Or I got to talk to him about my depression. That's going to, in their eyes, as a man, I'm thinking to myself, that's going to make them see me as weak, So I guess this double-sided, or double-barreled. So let's start with the child first. What are some of the things that a parent might recognize in a child that might say, you know what, before this gets any worse, I need to get this checked out?
Well, if I could speak to that, I actually have done quite a bit with children in my career. Actually, I love responding. My team knows I love responding to the children and youth. And I always say that to help the child is to help the family. Helping the family helps the child. I always say, and I all the years that I've worked with children and youth, I'm still the same with that. My assessment is still the same. Children begin to carry the unmet needs of the parent. So it's easy as children, we absorb. I'm not a child, but when I was a child, I absorbed whatever the parenthood was, whatever issue, that unmet need or issue that one of my parents had. If they didn't attend to it, then the child absorbs it.
Okay.
So I'm answering your question, Greg, but I am answering it. But okay. This is, so since we're talking about, men, my fleece to men and helping your children would be for you to begin to be open to work on whatever it is that you are dealing with. And like Chad was saying, being able to remove the label of that and just look at not treating a symptom, like a diagnosis, but a person. looking at them as I'm still answering your question about children.
Okay. Yeah.
I have such a passion about about children and families. And that's why I truly take the opportunity to urge families to get the needs, that they acknowledge that they have some concerns in order to help the child. So to answer your question, like behavioral issues in a child, if you're like one of the number one, I'm sure Chad is already going to know, one of the number one diagnoses for children, right, is attention deficit disorder. I mean, that is like the number one diagnosis. Okay.
Right.
But that could be from anything though. What I mean? Like a child not being able to pay attention or focus. And usually the diagnosis is coming from a school setting. Normally that is when that presents attention deficit in a school setting. And there's a whole issue regarding that. I mean, the type of every child has a learning difference, learning styles. If you're going to carbon copy a learning style, you're going to have a child that is going to not fit in that.
But see, Tanya, so you bring up the old ADD and ADHD thing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of parents refuse to take their kids to the doctor, one, because they don't want them drugged up.
Right.
But again, if I see my little Johnny, so you said, okay, sometimes the ADD thing is just in school and learning environment, but what are some of the things at the house that I'll see Johnny, and I know this is probably extreme, but Johnny just dropped the 6 cat out the window. Maybe we should go ahead and get him some help, before it gets to that point.
Actually,
go ahead.
Right. Actually, the animal, the good example using the animal, because that's usually a sign, a telltale sign that child is going through something when they're have no feelings or remorse of hurting an animal. Then it obviously goes to humans or whatever. But for me, recognizing isolation is one of the things. When your child is not social, or one mom told me her son is socially awkward. So when the child is not socializing as you do, and they kind of isolate themselves, or they're just quiet all the time. For me, that's one of the telltale signs. And isolation. They're taking control of their eating habits, not eating or overeating, not sleeping or sleeping too much. Unable to control your worrying about too many things. All those things you can see in the adult and the child. Yeah, definitely behaviors. Definitely acting out. Yeah. And then just go back to this point about the ADHD. I totally 1,000% agree with you. That's a ready diagnosis, and kids, there's actually stages that you shouldn't even diagnose a kid with that, because kids run around all day long. We did it as kids. We ran around and did some things that we probably should have been given medication for, but that's normal child play. So it's the ability to be able to separate normal child play from, okay, this kid is having some mental issues. I think that's a big key. And keeping it in context of what we're talking about here. There's a quote that says something like, "Father, a child is going at one day is going to stop listening to your advice and start following your examples." So what you said earlier about Chris, the father going to the family saying, "Hey, I'm about to go to therapy." But I mean, that's him all along giving the advice, and now he's giving the example of what the child should do. So yeah, it has to start as a child. But if we're talking about what men can do right now, they can do it right now. The same thing. Address their mental health issue, recognize it, and then set that example for their household or their family.
So I mean, if Johnny is shying away from everyone else, parent might say, well, that's just Johnny's shy. You know, his daddy was like that, or my uncle was like that. Should I be running right to a counselor for something like that for Johnny? Or
no, not, I mean, not necessarily. It takes a little bit more than that. And it also takes, you have to assess, further assessments and things like that. But if you're asking like, what is the like ready go-to thing that you may see and it's a red flag, we're just gathering red flags. So all those things combined, like you're not just gonna say, okay, Johnny's the type of person who just doesn't like to talk to people, because there's people who just don't like to talk to people all the time. So there has to be like more than one thing, right? And then it continuing to happen. Like, is Johnny always in his room all the time? Even when we're going to the amusement park, Johnny wants to stay in his room, right? That's a red flag. But if Johnny's just in his room, isolation. If Johnny's just in his room because he's playing the video game, then all the kids pretty much do that nowadays. So for me, it takes more than just that one red flag.
But even a child's anger, I mean, that's definitely a red flag. If a child is just constantly angry and volatile, yeah, absolutely. There's something underlining. Right. I mean, nobody is just going to be angry, right? There's something.
And it doesn't necessarily mean he has a diagnosis. It just means he's dealing with something.
Exactly. Something that needs to be attended to.
That needs to be talked about.
That's right. Exactly.
Okay. So then what are some of the benefits that come along from a man, right? And really think about if I'm a man, well, I am a man. But if I'm a man. So if I come to you and I say, well, what's mental health check? What's a mental health check? Or what's talking to someone about my mental well-being? What's that going to do for me? What would you say?
So I mean, one of the benefits is that you're not going to carry that burden anymore. You're gonna feel, honestly, you feel different after a therapy session. You feel like there's a burden lifted. I've had African American men, Caucasian men, Hispanic men come in with the macho attitude, and you can tell because they present different than everyone else. So they come in and they're tough. They just sit there and they're okay. What do you have for me? They're expecting you to give them something. And a lot of times they walk away with something, even though they think they won't walk away with something. So one of the benefits is that you're going to feel better almost immediately. And that's not a promise, but almost immediately you feel better, because a lot of times men have been carrying this burden, this situation, this problem for a long time. And it could be relationship, it could be anything. And then when they finally feel like they make that connection with somebody that either been through it before, that looks like them, that can understand them, they tend to relax, and then the shoulders are more down and they're more comfortable in their seat. And I've had to give boxes of tissues out before my session. So I think the most important thing is that you're gonna feel better once you start talking. And I had people that talk about, like, maybe they came in to talk about how their kids are misbehaving, like Tanya said. They have kids are showing out. And then as a kid, they had problems showing out. And why did they have problems with their behaviors? Because maybe they were abused as a child and things like that, So that one seed planted grows a whole forest.
Okay, so let me go to the comments. And I want to apologize. I think I told you to, but anybody that's watching says, why can't Chris keep his eyes off his phone while he's talking to people? I'm checking the comments in online, right? So Dan says, not to make light of the subject, but I feel like America is way too quick to label people as mentally troubled. One little tick or stutter, and they label you as mentally handicapped, or you feel like you're now getting a check, right? So what do you got to say about that?
So I think that actually is accurate. I think that goes along with kind of like what Chad was saying, right? Everything doesn't need a diagnosis. I mean, that is the field we're in. Honestly, I mean, if we go out to see somebody, eventually, You have to come up with some. I mean, that's just the reality of the system. But I get that, in terms of not everyone having a diagnosis, and kind of pushes people away because they don't want that labeling. But what I'll say to that is that the labeling itself, if we just had a different perspective on it, it may be liberating. And what I mean by that, so like, for example, like if in order to be able to get help in something, you have to be able to identify it. You have to identify what you need the help in. So like for for anybody, if we go to the doctor and we're physically ill or having some physical ailment, when we're going to the doctor, we actually want to find out what it is, right? We want to know, like if I'll speak for if I'm having pain in my body somewhere which I was a little bit ago, and I went to the doctor, I don't want to leave without something being identified.
Okay.
Right? I need something identified, so then I know, what needs to be treated.
Right.
And then you can come up with a plan to be able to treat that. So like if it came out to be like I just had a headache or whatever, then I'm labeling the headache, but where is that coming from? If that's making sense.
Yeah, so, I think that's perfect.
You want to be able to identify something so that you can treat something, that you can help.
But see, to Dan's point is, it might just be a headache, right?
Right.
But now I go to the doctor, and now you're telling me I got blood pressure when it's not, and you just want to push a pill on me, right?
That's right. That's right. That's
right. Yeah. If we keep it 100% real, the answer to Dan's question is money. You need to have a diagnosis in order to pay for this payment to happen. You can't get services unless, and I work for a company so I know what I'm talking about. You have in order for us to collect revenue, we have to give you a diagnosis. There's no way around it. So Dan is 100% right. Society is quick to do that. Yeah, and for me, everything always comes down to money when we talk about things like that. So yes, Tanya, you're right. When you go to the doctors, you want a name to what's happening. Why is my toe hurting? What is that? What is that all about? And at the same time, to Dan's point, it's a financial gain to give you a diagnosis. If you come to the office,
because I can think about our father, me and Chad's dad, right? Here we go, more money, right, for me to go to that, right? And so a man will not. I'm not going to somebody just now. I hear Chad, a professional, telling me, okay, then tell me this. Chad said no. So tell me then, how do I?
No, I agree. I'm saying I agree.
Okay, so then what's the sense in going to somebody if you're telling me that it's that money is a big factor in all of this? I got this headache. I do want to find out, but now I hear that these guys are in it just for the money. If they diagnose me, then they can get money. They can keep pushing the pills. They can get the kickbacks and all this other stuff.
Not necessarily. So I would say, do you want to be better? Do you want to feel better? Do you like the results of your life going so far? If you want something, you know what I mean? And are you okay with that? I always tell people, like, if you want, how is it working for you now? Is this good? Do you like what things are for you right now? Or do you want to feel different, or do you want something different? So like, for example, today I responded to a gentleman. Law enforcement actually wanted me to be with them because this gentleman had an incident of anger some weeks ago. And they were concerned about that. They wanted to make sure that it didn't result in that today. So when we met with him today, just a different approach, a calmer, we're meeting him not in a crisis this time. So we're able to approach him differently. Everybody was calmer. I spent time just listening. And at the end, he actually revealed something about his childhood, going back to kind of like what Chad was saying. In his childhood, that he said that actually is what caused him to have the last incident of anger, the unresolved issue from his childhood. So I didn't give him a diagnosis. You know, I mean, there was no diagnosis. It was just a giving him an opportunity to be able to just feel comfortable, a non-judgmental, you know, situation where he could just share. So actually after that, I said, okay, go ahead. Did you say something?
Oh, no, I mean to cut you off.
Okay. So then I was able to take the opportunity because he did express like, he doesn't like how he's feeling. He doesn't like, you know, how he's been feeling. But now he's finally identifying, okay, I have this issue from childhood that I've just been trying to deal with for years. But now I'm not able to any longer. That just gave me an open door to say, would you be interested in being connected to somebody? So it just takes me back to, are you good with the results that you have in your life thus far?
Well, some people are, though, right?
Yeah, that's true. We can't force anything different.
I sleep a lot, or when I get up, I just sit in my room and I watch TV. When I get done with everything, I don't want to be bothered. Now, the truth is, I probably am depressed, right? Because, you know, or maybe I snap here and there when somebody asks me a question, right? And I'm, you know, but at the end of the day, I'm not hurting anybody, right? So then why do I need, as a man, why do I need to go and get checked? If Chad, I think you're going to say something.
Oh, because you're not hurting anybody, but you're hurting yourself. You're not hurting nobody in your family. You're not physically hurting anybody, but you're quote unquote dying inside while you're sitting in the room depressed or just isolated. You can sit there and not hurt a soul, not hurt a fly. But what is your ultimate goal in life? Is it to just be there, or are you trying to be someone or do something? I do want to go back to real fast, Dan's, what I said about Dan's point about the other part of the other side of that is categorizing. So that's another reason for diagnosis. It's about money, yes, but also categorizing, because so whoever wrote the DSM-5 or whatever, they, you know, to get these diagnoses, have put names to categories like, okay, these 1,000 men, women, whoever have these same experiences. So we need something to categorize that as. We need something to, like Tanya was saying, we need something to name it in order for us to keep a track of it and keep taking it to the next level and keep an eye on it. So diagnoses are meant to just categorize. However, they have been misused in order to get financial gain and that includes the medical field as well, because there's money in medications, right? There's money in enforcing men, women, whoever to get these medications. For me, back to your question, for me, the man who's sitting in his room feeling he's not hurting anybody, but he's still isolated, then come talk to me about why you're doing that. Because there's a reason why you're choosing to sit in your room, even if you're a antisocial type of person and you just like to be alone. What caused that antisocialism in you? Where did that begin? Not that you have a diagnosis or category or label, but what's going on with you? And for men, if it helps, I think we don't have to have a diagnosis to talk. We're three sitting here talking about this thing right now. I haven't diagnosed any one of us, and Tanya hasn't given a diagnosis to none of us, right? But we're still able to talk about what's going on in the community. And that's what I was talking about when I said my traditional therapy versus modern therapy, nowadays therapy, right? Back in the day, yes, that's what you would go through. But now therapy for me, and I'm only speaking how I do my therapy, because I tell everybody I'm a different type of therapist. We talk. We share, we build, whatever words you want to use. We discuss things that is going on. And if that leads you to saying, okay, Chad, I need, like Tanya was saying, when you go to the doctor, you need something. If that leads you to saying, okay, Chad, I need to call this something, then we pull out this book right here, the 5, and we can go through and we can find you a name for what you're going through. But for me, that's not the number one thing. I only bring out that if somebody requests a name, a category, a diagnosis for it. In my therapy, like in my day job, that's different. But in my private practice, I don't need a diagnosis. I don't think I diagnosed anyone that I do therapy with now, maybe 1 or 2, but like they don't carry diagnosis with them because it's a natural flowing conversation. And for a man, since we're talking about men today, that's what men need. And that's what I think will make men feel more comfortable and going to talk about whatever's going on in their life. If they have somebody that relates to them, that either probably went through the same thing they went through or know somebody who went through it, or somebody they can just feel comfortable talking to.
Okay. I want to read what I'm not calling her Duchess. I'm going to read to you what Keisha says on here. And then also, and yes, I did say I'm not calling you Duchess. And then I want to ask a question. Okay. So she says the diagnosis is the beginning, the name of the topic. Once speaking with the specialist, they can help you look deeper and possibly discover more information about the true root of your issue and then begin to work to help solve the issue. Mm-hmm. She's spot on, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Identifying it.
Right. Yeah. Chad's not going to say all the way because that's his little sister. Right, Are you? Right. Is your sister
identifying
right?
it? Identifying it without carrying the label. Yeah. That is right. You can identify it without carrying the label.
Right. Okay. Okay. All right. So the question then. Here's a question from, and again, I'm talking because I know how men think. What am I going to sit in a room and talk to you about, right? But what are you going to do for me that I can't do for myself by talking this out and saying, yep, I'm depressed. I need to get out and do more with somebody. I know I watch enough TV. I can go on YouTube and see these things and I can say, okay, I need to pet cats. Okay. Oh, they feel fluffy. They feel good. There, I'm healed. Why a therapist? Why an actual professional versus self-help and medication?
That's the problem right there. That's the problem right there. The self medication, the self do this myself. That's the stigma. That's exactly why we're on here, because of that type of thinking. Why do I need to go sit in somebody's office to talk to somebody when I, macho man, can handle this on my own? You probably can handle things on your own, but tell me the opposite of that. What's the harm of coming to talk to somebody? You can tell me what you're not going to get out of it, but tell me what's hurting you to do it. What is negative is going to come out of you coming to talk to somebody. You talk on the phone, you on Facebook, putting your business on Facebook, on social media. I see men talking to their homeboys over a beer, over smoke. It's the same. What's the difference? The environment. You can have a Zoom therapy session. You can have an over the phone therapy session. You know what I mean?
Okay. It's so important for men to talk. Really, it's so important. I agree with you, Chad. You're talking every day. You're talking with your homies, with your friends, what have you, right? There's always top of the line in relationships, right? Between men and women. Oftentimes, the number one issue that is brought up is communication. And so it's so important. And I'm not a male, but I do have 2 adult sons. Mm-hmm. And I would say it is so important to be able to, the profession of counseling and therapists, I find is so important because you need someone to check your thoughts. So we all have thoughts, right? We all have a mind. We have our own thoughts, processing. We process our own thinking or what have you. But that may not be sound what we're thinking, right? It may not be stable. It may be something different than what you're thinking. If you're in front of somebody like a skilled counselor or therapist, that's different than chopping it up with the homies or your boys or whatever. It's different because with that's a different relationship that you have with friends, right? If you have somebody, just a neutral party, right across from you, like a therapist or a counselor, and you're sharing your thoughts, that person can skillfully check your thoughts, check what you're thinking, so that you're not just processing the thoughts in your mind. It could be so inaccurate. You could have been having these same things in your mind. You're thinking like your perception, this is your perception, because oftentimes our perceptions are based off of experiences, right? So if you're talking to someone else, a skilled professional, you're giving them your perception, which is based off of your experience. Now you're in front of somebody that can check that.
Okay.
And and be able to help you like realize like that experience wasn't actually a healthy one. Okay. So I'm just saying, so to speak. It's just so important and so liberating to be able to talk.
Here's something Rachel says. Rachel says some people might feel that seeing someone like you two is telling their business, right? Whereas what happens at home stays at home, and now I got you two, so how do you address something like that?
Well, I live that. I mean, that was my house. Again.
Yeah.
I lived in that in my own family.
Yeah, we did too.
Yeah.
And, don't put our business out on the street.
Yeah, I mean, that's just what it was. And I recently, my mom and I have been able to talk about some very deep things. My mother and I, just recently, my mom's in her 80s now, and so we were able to just really get some things out that just had to not be spoken about, that was damaging our relationship because it couldn't be spoken about. I made a decision that I didn't want our relationship to experience this damage anymore. No one is promised tomorrow, and we're just getting older. So not just being in the profession, I have to have integrity. So I work in the profession, I have to live it. Yeah. So I was, the one to be like, these are some things that really need to be discussed.
So that's the answer then, is the fact that you guys have to have integrity and discretion. And my thought would be, go ahead. Yeah.
I think and I just want to say it has nothing to do with license. Like I'm a licensed, right? I'm licensed to do therapy. License was only granted by me passing a test. That's where the license came from. What we're talking about is experience. We're talking about living this life, right? We all grew up in a house where how it goes, what happened here stays here. Don't share your business to everybody in the streets, whatever. We're all products of that. But that's a curse. That was a gift and a curse for us. Because what did it lead to for the black male? Health problems, right? Heart attacks, stress causes heart attacks. All these physical ailments that we obtain from holding these things inside. So, of course, black men, since we're talking about black men or males, period, have pride. So our pride keeps us from coming to sit down and talk to somebody like me and Tanya. Our pride does that. But at the end of the day, the pride means nothing because we're the same. We're people. We're humans. And the schooling only helped us develop skills to address it in a more professional way and to understand it a little better. But the natural therapists we all have friends that we used to listen to back in the day. We all were the type of people who people came to us and told our problems, even before we thought about helping the community or helping people. We always were that type of people. So we just went to school to further that. So that has people say, you're licensed to do this. Yeah, New York State license because you have to be, but I'm still a human and I still went through these things. And I think that's the answer to why men should come and talk to people, because we're the same.
Okay. I've got to, we're getting close to time, and I got two very important things I want to bring out. Tanya, from a female's perspective, if you're dating, married, you have a brother, your sons, whoever, right? Are looking for from a female's perspective, take your professionalism out of this if you can, right? What would you think about a male that is seeing someone for, and again, mental health doesn't mean, if you guys correct me if I'm wrong, which I'm probably not wrong, I'm hardly ever wrong, right? Mental health does not mean schizophrenic, doesn't only mean schizophrenic, bipolar, all that stuff, right? It could be stressed, depressed, I'm just going through something, right? All of that
anxiety.
Is mental health, right? Anxiety, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So if you had a male in your life, or if one of the men in your life, you find out that he or she is going or thinking about, what would your perception of that man be? Honestly.
Wait, if they were in counseling?
If they're thinking about going to counseling, or in counseling, or have been in counseling.
Wonderful. I think that's good. One, obviously, I'm going to wonder why. Chad is looking like, of course, I'm going to wonder if it's somebody, you're saying like if it's like a person that would be coupled up with me.
Yeah.
Husband.
Other.
Okay. Yeah. A significant other. Yeah. But I would actually be glad that this person is open enough to sit across from someone and be able to have that type of interaction, that counseling piece. I think that would say a lot to me about the man. So that he realizes that he needs someone to talk to or to help him through something, and that he just doesn't have all the answers. So that kind of lets me know where there's some humbleness in him.
That's it.
Which is very important
age plays a
element for me. Age.
I think your age also plays a difference in that too. If Chris posed that question to a 18-year-old Tanya or a 17-year-old Tanya, I wonder would your answer be the same? And the only reason I'm saying that is because I deal with teenage females now. And if Chris presented that question to them, they're like, oh, or something like that.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm in a different developmental bracket.
Yeah, and so that's why I guess I asked that question.
I can only answer it from the bracket that I'm in now. But absolutely.
So maybe I should ask those that are watching. I know Jenny's on, Keisha's on, the other Keisha's on. They're younger than the two of you because I ain't near you guys' age. But I'm just joking, Tanya. I'm close to your age. I'm older than Chad. But anyways, what would a younger woman think if she had a boyfriend or a fiance or whoever that is talking to a counselor or seeing a counselor? That's what I'm putting out to the audience right now, and I'll read their responses when they get to it. Right. My next question, because I do know
I personally think it's going to be based on maturity.
Okay. And what I'm trying to draw out of that, right? But what I'm trying to draw out of that is men will probably not do it because of how they are perceived by the female in their life, right? And I do believe that men respond, or men do certain things. Even my biggest thing is men sag because women allow them to. Okay. If women decided that they're not going to talk to a man whose butt is hanging out, men will pull their pants up, right? Women have a lot of control over what a man does or doesn't do, right? So I feel like if a female was open enough to say, you're not a weirdo by seeing somebody, I respect that. That shows me that you're humble. you get to Tanya's point, right? Then I think you would see more men in you guys' office, right? As opposed to what you see now. So I know we have a lot of females that are watching, that are single mothers, right? Of boys. The fathers are not present for one reason or another, right? What can you tell a mother who has a son who she might be concerned about how that part right there is even playing in his life as far as his mental well-being? Is there anything quickly that you can say about that? Because then the next thing I want to ask about in the next 5 minutes is some coping mechanisms. And I understand the whole, you don't want to self-diagnose too much, but sometimes just going and taking a breather or walking, or something like that could help with some of the lightweight mental health issues. So let's talk about the whole single mom with baby boys running around her house right now.
What was the exact question, Chris?
I don't even remember. I think I was saying, because I know that there are some single moms.
Yep.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I've been a single mom since 1998.
Right. And so I got a son as a single mom. I've got a son. His father isn't there. And I'm worried about how that's affecting him. What are some of the things I can do? What are some of the things I should say to him? You get what I'm saying? Or look for? I think we talked about some of the identifying factors, but is there anything else that you want to say to the single moms that are watching with boys? Because boys, like Chad's point, depressed boys grow up to be depressed or mental health issued men.
Exactly. Well, I can speak for what I did. Because I'm obviously being a single parent is going to raise some issues, when you with your children, because you're the only parent. I would take time with them individually. If I saw something that was concerning to me, like the red flags that Chad was bringing up, maybe a son was isolating a little bit more. Maybe he seemed angry about, easily angered or what have you. I try to make a point to have not try to push them away by saying, boy, what's wrong with you? My presentation, I wanted to, over time, I had to realize that my presentation had to be inviting to my son, and make sure that I'm not putting on them a societal norm for a boy. You know what I mean? Okay. But making sure that I'm approaching them like in a caring manner.
Okay.
Are you individually, not in front of, because I have four children. So I also made it a point to make sure that I wasn't talking about, if I'm addressing something or trying to uncover if there was if they had some issues or concerns, something that was concerning them. I wanted to eliminate embarrassment as well. So I would have my own, because shame will shut you down. Right? I mean, so I wanted to make sure that I had them away from their siblings so they didn't have any embarrassment, any shame, and we just had that one-on-one time.
I think it's a good point. And a lot of
my quick answer is surround them with positive male role models. I take my hats off tremendously for a single mom and all the work that they put in. And I won't say and at the same time, boys need positive male role models so that they can see that.
You froze.
Did you freeze, Chad? You're freezing. You're freezing.
As well.
Yeah. What'd you say?
We didn't hear what you said. All we hear is positive
male role models.
I agree with Chad. I just want to jump in. I completely agree. First and foremost, I had to identify I'm not a man. I'm not, I mean.
And that this could probably go to another session.
No, and hence my T-shirt.
Right.
That design. No, that was one of the reasons because we can't be all things to all people. You have
But
to
you know,
realize that.
there are a lot of women who will stay, and I don't want to bash
Mm-hmm.
women at all, of course, because I know, to Chad's point, there are a lot of single women who are doing an awesome job, right? A heck of a job. But there are women who feel, well, you know what, I'm doing it. I got this. I can do it. But I believe that the truth is you can't really do it if you really want to be honest with yourself.
You can't,
especially male children, right? But that's another segment.
Right,
we can
right.
talk about that, right?
Yeah.
So I think both of you agree that positive male role models. I love the don't embarrass them, don't check them in front of their siblings, because siblings can be mean, right? And even if not, that sense of embarrassment is there. So let's talk about quick coping mechanisms for the lightweight stuff, if that's okay to use the word lightweight. You know, like, oh, go ahead. I'll just let that be that.
For men, Chad.
I'll say it fast. Oh no. Okay, so for me, emotional scaling is, I don't have time to really interpret what that means, but 10, checking yourself is what I call it, seeing where you're at daily and keeping a track of that will help you determine, hey, I'm here and this is where I need to be. If anybody's interested in learning more about emotional scaling, I'm sure Chris will provide my information. But for me, the quick answer is there's so many little things you can do. Taking your dog for an extra walk around the corner versus taking them up the street. Exercising, getting some air, sitting in the car, listen to meditation music. Those are just quick coping skills. I know we're running out of time. Those are ones that came to my mind real fast.
Okay. I'm just gonna put this up here really quick. Chad's is that correct? M4M M4MC counseling at gmail.com.
No, you have you have M4M. It should be M4C.
Okay, calm down.
I'm just saying.
M4C counseling, right? Boom.
At gmail.com.
That's how you can reach Chad, regardless of where you are in the country or in the world. You can reach out to Chad, especially men, mothers with young men. You can get some real modern day counseling from Chad, and discretion is top of the line, correct? Has to be, right?
Confidentiality.
All right. Confidentiality. Okay.
100%.
Awesome.
100%.
All right. Thank you, both of you, very much. Tanya she mentioned she did her quick plug about this T-shirt thing, right? And Tanya, can you talk about it really quick and show it real quick?
Yeah.
You have it with you?
Yeah. Let me grab it. Hold on.
And so, Chad, really quick while she's grabbing that. Counseling session. Oh, this is the other thing I wanted to ask you guys. So let's go back to the mothers or even men. Is the first step your PCP, your primary care physician, or is it, okay, let me look up this counselor? Or is there no blueprint to how you get it addressed?
Well, oftentimes it does come through the primary care, because usually people have a primary care.
Okay.
And primary care doctors actually get a lot of information from people, that other people wouldn't, because that's like an intimate relationship, a primary care doctor. Okay. So that's definitely a good starting point.
But
I agree. Let me just say this real fast. I agree. However, on the flip side of that, we know men do not go to their primary care. So for me, the answer would be seek your community, seek people like Chris and people who are involved in the community who know people to do these things, because we don't go to the doctors.
That's right. See, that's why it's good to have men here. See,
right?
See, I'm talking from a woman.
You're not
that's
wrong,
right,
though.
Chad.
You're not wrong,
No, you're right.
Wow.
You're right. Yeah. You're right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Which is something else we will be talking about soon, is men and their physical doctors, their primary care doctors, and why it's important for men. I think that's why men get diagnosed at the last minute about things. Because even for you guys' world, right? You ended up, I don't want to make it light of the subject, but you end up doing something crazy in life because you didn't get it checked in the very beginning, right? When that headache started, if you would have gotten checked with the doctor, you wouldn't have found out later on that you got something, detrimental happening that now it can't be cured. Okay. Tanya, tell me about while I put in your email address.
Oh, so I don't know if y'all can see this. So
You can.
There you
I
go.
designed these shirts. It says fathers are essential. And it is a father with holding one child in his arm and holding the hand of the other child. And then at the bottom, I had a scripture verse, Malachi 4:6, because it talks about the father's heart turned towards their children. And then when a father's heart turns towards his children, then his children's heart will be turned towards him. So I had actually designed this shirt because there are so many absent fathers. And not just absent which is so, and that goes back to, I know that's a whole nother segment, so maybe we can come back and talk about that.
Yeah.
You know, but I designed that because like I said, there's so many, and not just that, there are a lot of single mothers who I've met with many, and they just have the mindset that they don't need the other party, and that's just not true. That's not fair to the child.
Right.
So the shirts are really just promoting the message that we need fathers. We need you to be a father, and we don't want, as a mother, I wanted to promote that message that we shouldn't be hindering. Hindering the relationship. Got it.
Yeah, we got you.
It's so important, you know, and I just think about so many of the ills that we're looking at. And I know we're pressed for time, but turning on the new, or our young men on the street, or just getting caught up in a lot of different things. I oftentimes I'll ask the question, you know, is your father in your life? Where, you know, what was the role he had? And oftentimes you'll get to the answer that he wasn't. And I had a young man tell me that he lives with a hole in his heart. It was an adult. He was an adult young man. And he told me he lives with a hole in his heart every day because his father is alive, but not in his life.
And then there are fathers that are in their lives, but ain't there emotionally too. Right. So that's an issue too. So just really quick.
Yeah.
Rachel says another quick coping mechanism is journaling.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yep. And then Roddy says, these people think I'm about to call them by their names. I'm not calling you by Dean Dagger, Roddy. Roddy says men are taught since boys to suppress their emotions, right? Basically maintain and carry on. And then Keisha follows up by saying boys are taught that real men don't cry. How does that affect men when crying is not acceptable? And the crazy thing about that is this past summer, my nephew told me he got stung by a bee. Did it hurt? He says, yeah, it hurt. I said, did you cry? I couldn't. My boys were around. What? What is that? You know what I mean? I cry. Well, yeah, that's just nuts. You get what I'm saying? But society, television, music, fathers, mothers, because mothers don't want no punk boy walking around the house. Tell their kids that they can't cry. And that's an issue. And so I think to Chad's point, you build all that up. And then when you become older, now it's funneling down into their kids.
And it'll come out. It'll come out in anger, rage, violence. Those things will come out.
Yeah. Chad, you going to say something?
So the phrase real men don't cry. So
you're frozen again, Chad. Real men frozen. So Chad, you're freezing.
Cry.
But while he's unfreezing, right? Eric asked how can we receive or purchase one of the shirts? So Eric, right there scrolling across the screen is Tanya's email address. If you reach out to her, glory7158@yahoo.com, you can reach out to her and she can hook it up. Chad, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Nope. And I know it's something important. He wants to talk about this. Real men don't cry, and I don't want to end it.
Real men do cry, and the other part of men not crying is appropriate crying. So I think that's what's missing.
Nah, missed it.
You gotta text him, Chad. Text Chris. Text Chris.
He said, real men do cry. And I don't know what else you said, Chad. So he's sending it to me. The t-shirts, Tanya.
Crying.
The email address is theglory7158. I think this was real. I think this was important that we talked about. I think some great things were uncovered. I appreciate the both of you. I appreciate the comments that were put in the chat room also. And I think this is something that can't go, to Tanya's point in the very beginning, cannot go unaddressed anymore, because it's there. It's in your face. And sometimes we turn a blind eye at home because we don't want to deal with it. But if we don't deal with it, the potential of us having a family member on the news, because it went too far, is very, very high. And you just want a happy environment. And the way to handle that is to get some counseling for some real deal people who care more about you. And I think it's easy to identify someone who cares about you and your well-being, as opposed to the monetary portion that might be associated with it. Chad, did you text it to me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. He says,
Never mind,
appropriate
there's no short
crying is
answer.
what is missing, but I need to explain that further. Go ahead. No,
so I
brother.
think when they teach us don't cry, I don't know.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
I think when they teach us boys don't cry, they mean like crying over every little thing. Like I even use that today. They call my son a crybaby if he just does something little and cries. And we translated that into men don't cry or show emotions whatsoever, and that's totally wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there are some reasons to cry, but then there are some reasons to not cry. Is that what you're trying to tell me? Absolutely.
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah. There's appropriate crying. So if some of you are interested or want to know what those appropriate crying is all about, then there's Chad's email address on there, right? And you can contact him. And I'll end this by saying this. I've got friends where we've sat in a room, male friends, we've sat in a room and cried. And when we left, it felt a lot better, because the three of us were holding in things, the exact same thing that we never released to each other. And, it ended up being like, it felt really good. One, to get it out, but also to see that other people were dealing or carrying the same burden that we were carrying. So again, I want to thank both of you for your help. Thank you so much for your expertise, and especially thank you for what you do out in the community. And I just want to say God bless both of you and your homes and everything that you do, everyone that you encounter with. I really pray to God that they see the blessing that is attached to you guys being in their lives. Thank you very much. And we will continue this, because we do need to talk about this. Women shouldn't raise boys on their own. All right?
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't forget to reach out to Tanya for the t-shirts. Don't forget to reach out to Chad, regardless of where you are. He can do some online. He gone. He can do some online counseling if you're far away. Reach out to him. That's my brother. All right. I'll talk to you later, Tanya. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Bye.